Hello everyone, this is CST and today we are going to talk about variables, loops and conditions. And because it is easier with an example, we jump right into it. What you can see here is a Visual Studio 2019 project creator, and we just go ahead and create a project. We're going to work with the console application. We go with the .NET Framework, watch out that you have C# here. Go next. Project name is going to be even numbers for me. Take whatever you want, but I know what's coming. And we create. There we go. We got a namespace, even numbers generated for us. We got a class program and the static void main. For now, ignore all of it. The only thing that's important is that the main method is gonna be the main entry point of our application. What that means is once you start the program, everything that's gonna be inside here is going to be executed. So let's talk about variables first. Variables save information according to the data type. But what does it mean? Imagine you want to store a number. To store a number, you need something called an integer, short int. Then you give it a name and you assign, for example, a 42 to it. So what does it mean? You have a type int, a name I, and you assign 42. So in that variable, there's a 42 assigned to I now. As the name variable implies, variables can change over time by manipulating them. So let's go ahead and increment the value of I by 1. We can do that by I equals I plus 1. And because I was 42 first, it's 43 now because we incremented it by 1. There's a short method to do it, it's I++. I++ does nothing else than incrementing the value of the variable by 1. Easy. So far so good. There are several basic data types in C# and of course in other programming languages. And the most important for this video are gonna be integer and string. So we know integer, and a string is nothing else but a text. So let's get rid of that here. And if we have a string, we call it user input for now, and we just say hello. So as for an integer, we have the data type here, string, the variable's name, and we assign hello to it. So how can we see now what is in that variable at this moment? So for presentation purposes, we will print the value on the console now. In another video, I do cover debugging. It's a common approach of finding errors and to cover performance issues. But for now, let's just print it on the console and see what happens. So to print on the console, we have a static method called console.writeLine. And we just give the value of I to it, and we give the variable user input to it. And we start. You can start by pressing the start button here or F5. But what happens? The program terminates immediately. So let's be the program. I'm not kidding, we are the program now. So what is the program gonna do? It assigns 42 to the new variable I, it assigns hello to the new variable user input, it writes it on the console, and then it's done. It finished. It has nothing to do anymore and it terminates. So what we need to do here is, we need to make the program wait. And we can make the program wait by saying, hey program, there's a user input waiting. So if we execute now, as you can see, there's a 42 that we expected, the hello we expected, and now the program waits. It waits for you to input something. So come on, input something.
Do it! Do it! Come on! Do it now!
Okay, I do it. So once the program gets the user input, it terminates because the read line is gonna trigger and it finishes its execution. Nice, so we covered variables. So now imagine you want to print all numbers from 0 to 1000 on the console. So because that will probably take more time than building a wall between Mexico and the USA, for purposes like that we have loops. And in this video we'll cover the for loop. And the for loop consists of 3 elements. First, we can declare variables. How do we do it? We do it exactly like we did above. Actually, let's get rid of that here. And declare a variable. So in this case, we declare the variable I and assign it to 0. The second element of the for loop is the condition. What that means is how long is the for loop gonna execute before it stops going into its body. What the body is what I show later. So, and we wanna execute it 1000 times. And the third element is gonna be what's happening every time the loop is resetting. So every time the loop resets, we want to increment the value of I by 1. Because if we don't increment the value of I by 1, every time the loop executed, it's never reaching its goal and it would loop forever. So basically, what this loop does now is it starts at 0, goes from 0 to 999, and then when it sees it's at 1000, it does not go into the loop body anymore because it's larger or equal than 1000, and it goes ahead and executes what's coming right here, our console.readline. Fine. So what we want to do here now is we output our variable I and we just see what happens. So here we go. So when I said we want to print out 1000 numbers, why do I go less than 1000 and not less or equal than 1000? It's because we start at a 0. So when you count from 0 to, where is it? To, come on, yes, no, yes. To 999, it's gonna be 1000 numbers. Trust me. Okay, but let's make it a bit more complicated now. What if we only want to print out every even number in that range? What we need for that is a conditional expression. No worries, it is very similar to the middle part of the for loop. The so-called if statement, this, okay, we just made Visual Studio angry. The so-called if statement uses a Boolean expression to decide whether it executes what is inside it or whether it skips it. But what is a Boolean expression? Christopher, that is a new word. A Boolean expression, what is it? Okay, a Boolean expression is an expression that you can answer with either true or false. So for example, if you ask yourself whether the apple in front of you is red, the answer to that question is either yes or no, or true or false respectively. So, if, for example, we say true here,
It's true.
this if statement is gonna apply every time, and nothing else is happening again. It's gonna be the numbers from 0 to 999. So, whatever condition we have here is gonna be applied, and if it's true, the body of the statement is gonna execute. If it's false, it's gonna skip it. So now, we only wanna print even numbers. We can use the modulo operator for it. And from mathematics we know that any given number is even if it is divisible by 2 without a rest. And what the modulo operator does, it does a division and it returns the rest of the division. So that's easy, right? We just say if I modulo 2 has no rest whatsoever, we print it. So, for example, if our number is 0 and we divide it by 2, it has no rest, so it writes the 0 on the console. If our number is 1, we have a rest of 1, it does not write it because 1 modulo 2 is 1 and that is not equal to 0, as I hope all of you know. So we don't write it on the console and skip it, and we go ahead. The loop resets, I++, increments the value, and goes in the for loop with the next value. So if we start it here, what we get are the numbers, but this time only the even numbers. How cool is that? Like, with literally easy code, we just constructed a program that only prints even numbers. And what I don't like about this now is that it's very, very, very static code, because we have the 1000 here. We say, okay, this is a for loop and it executes for 1000 numbers. How cool would it be if the user decides how many numbers he wanna print? So what we're gonna do now is we define a string and we call it user input. And actually we don't assign anything to it now because we want the user to decide what is in there. And for that we have user input equals, and now we call a method called console.readline. And what this method does, what this method does is the same as here. It waits for a user input, returns the user input that has been made, and now we store the the made input into our variable user input. So it's available here. And let's assume the user says you want to run 5,000 times. We need to replace that 1,000 here with the user input. And now Visual Studio gets angry again. Why? Because what we have here is a string. And C# is very sensitive about its data types. So what it expects here is if you have an integer here, you can only compare it to another integer. So if you compare it to a string, it doesn't know what to do. So we need to tell C#, hey, it's a number. So we parse it with int.parse. So now it knows how to interpret that user input. It interprets it as a number. So let's see. We start the program. And now we only see black because it waits for the user input. Let's say we give it a 42 and we press enter, and there we go. We have the first numbers in a range of 42 that are even. Why is 42 not in the range? Because we are going through that loop for less than 42. So it goes from 0 to 41. So the last number it's gonna print is 40, because 41 is an odd number. So everything is correct here. We close it. And this pretty much wraps it up for the video. And if you have any questions or suggestions for upcoming videos, feel free to ask. And if you liked the video, I would be happy if you go a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more videos. And never forget, without learning, there's no earning. See you in the next one.